This is another example of what I was speaking about in my last video with Adam Mockler and Geraldo Rivera. The old media trying to downplay and try and patronize new media, i.e. Adam Mockler. In this clip, we're going to see two MAGA Republicans try to corner Adam Mockler, all based around the Iran war, but it instantly backfires and he proves them wrong as well as proving himself right. As usual, let's watch the clip in full. Give you guys my thoughts towards the end. Let's get into it.
Good evening, I'm Abby Phillip in New York. Here's a sign that we are in America's Iran war. The president who started it can't remember how long it's been going on.
We have a war right now, and we're to like, what, 6 weeks? They said, what's taking so long?
Not quite. We are in the 10th week of the war and the third month, with no end in sight, frankly. Donald Trump may not be keeping track, but Americans certainly are, via their gas prices. It's hit another high today, and one expert says that you can expect to see $5 at a pump if the Strait of Hormuz doesn't open soon. Now, the president is also dismissing how unpopular the war is.
They give me fake polls. They tell me about polls and this. You know, it's interesting. I did a poll on the war with Iran, and they said only 32% of the people like it. Well, I don't like it, and I don't like war at all. They said 32% of the people are against President Trump. Well, when you explain it, like, is it okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon? It wouldn't be 32%. But even if you said that, there'd be a 32% because the polls are fake. I mean, they're totally fake.
For the reality, at the start of the war, Americans were pretty evenly divided in their support for the conflict. But now, 61% say that the campaign in Iran was a mistake, and there is a clear generational gap, too. While older Americans are split, 61% under the age of 35 oppose the war, and 80% of those under 30 say there were no sufficient reasons to attack Iran in the first place, while 51% over the age of 65 say that there were. So this generational divide, I think, when it comes to war, has always been a thing in America, but it seems particularly acute right now, Adam.
Yeah, for my entire life, the United States has been at war with some country in the Middle East, and young people have constantly been told that this will make us safer and make us better off. But when we look around at the world today, we are less safe and we are worse off. Millennials grew up watching all these headlines saying that Iraq had been, defeated, that we had taken out Saddam Hussein and we had killed all the bad guys. Well, that turned into a grinding counterinsurgency that cost us $1 trillion, and it was a catastrophe. The same thing happened with Afghanistan, and now Gen Zers are going through the same thing with Iran. We are watching the same people who defended these first two failed wars go on television and defend another failed war. This war is failing. We have not gotten any political concessions, and I'm sorry, I'm not buying this trust the process line. I don't trust the same people who got us into the prior wars, amassed trillions of dollars in debts, and are not putting America first on the global stage.
So putting aside, perhaps for a moment, even the politics of this current moment, I mean, is it fair for young people to have that level of distrust of the people, to Adam's point, who maybe defended the last war and were wrong and are defending this war too?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, honestly, Adam, that's immensely ungrateful to American service personnel and the people who keep us safe every day. After 9/11, it was by no means guaranteed that there would be no mass casualty terrorist attack on American soil in the immediate aftermath of that attack, especially since we had events in Madrid, in London, etc. And after the attack on Iraq and the elimination of Saddam Hussein's regime, we took a terrorist-supporting enterprise off the map. We don't talk about Iraq anymore as a threat to national security because it isn't. And those who would pretend as though Iran is not a national security threat, and are just frankly dismissive of the extent to which American service personnel get up every day to stop these people from executing the attacks on American and their allies that they plan every single day. This is a thorn in our side. It absorbs a lot of American taxpayer dollars, to say nothing of the energy of our service personnel. And I just think it's just ungrateful to say that the service personnel are not keeping you safe when they are.
No, I feel less safe due to the actions of our leaders. I'm incredibly grateful for our servicemen. You're doing
your feelings don't make it a
listen,
fact.
You are
your feelings, the way you feel doesn't make it a fact.
You are doing.
Let
me finish. He was talking to me. He was talking to me.
Hold on a second, Hal. I'll let you respond.
No one was talking to me.
Let him finish his thought.
You are doing the exact same thing that I just laid out in the opening. You are telling young people they shouldn't be asking questions. They shouldn't be questioning the people in power
because it's ungrateful. Questions about the nature of
okay, then what was ungrateful about what I said? I said that the leaders are making us less safe, and I can prove that. Right now, Iran has control over the Strait of Hormuz, and that is a weapon they didn't have control of 2 months ago.
Of course they did. They shut down the Strait of Hormuz in the 80s. And we opened it up in the 80s.
And by the way,
there was free passage to the
with a
Strait of
nuclear
Hormuz?
weapon, you think gas prices are high right now? Iran with a nuclear weapon, we'd have unlimitedly high gas prices. They would take control of the Strait of Hormuz, and they would blackmail the world.
And how much farther away are they from having a nuclear weapon? Where's the enriched uranium right now?
They're non-existent.
Where's the enriched uranium
We're
right
going
now?
to get the enriched uranium.
No, where is it? I want you to answer.
It's buried right now. But
where is it buried?
You're asking me. I'm not in the classified briefings, and neither are you. So just be
where
quiet
is it
for a minute
buried?
and let
We
me
know
finish.
it's buried in Iran.
Let me finish.
Okay, Adam, let him
we are more safe than we were before we took out Iran's nuclear capabilities. Absolutely more safe. The Strait of Hormuz is going to be open, and Iran's not going to control it. That is absolutely going to happen. It doesn't matter if it's 2 weeks or 2 months.
It does actually matter because
not.
economists are saying if it's closed for a few more months, and we're going to go into a recession. So it does matter. It absolutely does matter.
No one's predicting that because the markets that are all-time high.
No one's predicting that?
The markets that are an all-time high, the markets aren't predicting it.
With the oil markets?
The inflation rate has stayed where it is. And by the way,
what was inflation
by the way, unemployment has stayed low. So when you're talking about everyone's predicting this.
Can you look the average American in the eye?
Just to be clear, inflation has ticked up.
Yes.
It has not stayed the same. But Bobby, you were around for the politics and the conflict of the last two Middle East wars. I mean, what do you make of this generational debate about whether it's wise to be going into another conflict in this region?
Well, I can't fault the logic that when you've seen this happen through your lifetime and you're still living with the consequences of it in one fashion or the other, you're bound to be reluctant to get into the war. Nobody is disputing for the fact that, for a moment, that the Iranians are the Iranian regime are bad guys. But when you hear the president and our leadership constantly changing the explanation they're giving for why we're at war, constantly changing the timetable of how long this is going to last, and then forgetting how long it has been going on, then you're right to push back and say, kindly give us a clearer explanation for why we're there, how long we're going to be there for. It's not enough to say, sit at this table and say, it'll be over, and then the Straits of Hormuz will be open. We've got no indication of that being the case. When the straits were closed, we were told this is a matter of days. Now it's been a matter of weeks, and we're no closer to it being open than we were 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago.
And on top of what you're saying there, I mean, I think one of the big problems with where we are in this conflict is that very clearly the administration has determined, because they've basically ended the kinetic conflict of it all, they've determined that the only way to actually get the things that we want, which is Iran abandoning its nuclear ambitions, moving away from funding terrorism, is to get to the negotiating table, which is the same truth that existed a year ago after they did the first set of strikes. So, I mean, I think that's part of the problem, is that war has not necessarily gotten us the outcome that they say that we are trying to get here.
No, and that's because the rationale for the war has shifted multiple times. No one here has ever said we want a nuclear-armed Iran. That is a red herring at this point. This is the only talking point that the pro-Trump folks have, because they've gotten themselves into a situation that they were unprepared for. And what's incredibly ungrateful, you know who's incredibly ungrateful? Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, for the men and women who are serving in this war, who are on deployments that are extra long, who are not getting their ships resupplied, who don't understand what they're doing over there, who are being taken for granted. Our military is the greatest in the world, and the men and women who serve are the greatest in the world, and they are being taken for granted as props in a political effort by Donald Trump to make himself feel better till he can distract from everything else that's going on domestically. And now he's gotten himself into a situation where he can't even explain cogently why we're there, what's going on, and why the American people should have to pay the price for it. So that's what's going on here. I mean, when I was a Republican for many years, we absolutely looked at Iran as the threat that it is, and absolutely were trying to do things to make sure that they did not continue to be the world's sponsor of terror. But this isn't it. This is not it.
Noah, you talked about Adam, you accused Adam of being ungrateful. I just want you to look at these charts. Look at what happened to public opinion when it came to the war in Afghanistan. Was it a mistake for the U.S. to send military forces to Afghanistan? The war started out as incredibly popular, and then it became much less popular. So about half of Americans said that it was a mistake, and about half said that it was not. The same is true of Iraq. Incredibly popular, right decision, 72%, back at the beginning of it. And by the end of the conflict in 2014, it was down to 38%. I mean, are all of these Americans ungrateful? I mean, I imagine many of them they ended up tasting the consequences of the war, including the impacts on their lives, people that they knew, people who may not have even lost their lives in theater but came back forever scarred by it. I mean,
to clarify what I had said previously is that it is, in my view, ungrateful to American service personnel to say that they have not kept us safe when we do not measure.
That's not what I said.
Allow me to finish.
But that's not what I said. But he didn't say that. So you have to acknowledge
No. He's saying that we can measure non-events, which is to suggest that the attacks that have not happened, which none of us are aware of, were not avoidable. Because of the nature of these conflicts. And the conflicts themselves are what inspires the attacks. It's almost inviting the notion that America is responsible for the terrorist.
That's not really the argument that he's making. The argument that he's making is that the people who made the arguments to go into these conflicts in the first place misled, which is a fact. And secondly, that the conflicts ended up lasting a very long time, costing a lot of American treasure, and those are also facts. So he didn't say it's because they're they didn't keep us safe. That's not actually what he said.
Well, that is kind of what he said. But let's not belabor the point. I have all the time in the world for criticisms of the president's rhetoric. All the time in the world. In fact, I think a lot of the reasons why the public is soured on this is because the president never approached Americans and solicited their support, told them the burdens they were expected to bear, and told them why they were going into this. But as important as it is to criticize the president's rhetoric, it's also important to talk about what's happening on the ground. And we are closer today to opening up the strait by virtue of what we heard from Admiral Brad Cooper today and the operation that was engaged over the course of the last 24 hours. Very important. We can't just glaze over the fact that the United States is transiting the Strait of Hormuz. We can't talk about today's events.
And then I want Bobby to have the last word.
Well, I covered the war in Iraq. I was there for all the arguments going into that war in Iraq. I remember people saying this was the major sponsor of terror. And you pointed to 9/11. Iraq had nothing whatsoever to do with 9/11. And going into Iraq and toppling that regime, as much as I hated the regime as any right-thinking people, spawned from the direct consequence of that the Islamic State, also a terrorist group that came directly out of our actions in Iraq. So, if we want to look at historical precedents, we should not cherry-pick little bits out of a larger picture and pretend that the larger picture doesn't.
I also want to
spill over the Syrian war.
To expand on my framework, I gave a very good faith criticism of this war and of the history of these types of wars. And I had one person say that I was ungrateful, and then another invoke the weapons of mass destruction that Iran could potentially be developing. What I was trying to say is that getting military successes, if you want to call them that, doesn't always translate to helpful outcomes for the American people. We've seen this. We killed Saddam Hussein. We took out the bad guy, and it hurt us.
It's arguable that this war is the most just war since World War II, because Iran has killed thousands of Americans. Saddam Hussein hadn't killed thousands of Americans. Afghanistan hadn't either.
But he ran on no new wars.
No, I'm saying
he ran on no new wars.
Yeah, but it was so justified. Why didn't he take it to the Congress?
It's a 47-year war.
Why didn't he take it to the Congress and the American people if it was so justified?
Ultimately, he may do that, but
ultimately, why didn't he do that before
he didn't
the
have
bombs
to.
were
He has a War
dropping?
Powers Act.
Didn't say he had to. I'm using your own logic where you said it was so justified, the most just war since World War II. Then why didn't he go ahead and present it to the American people that way?
Iran has killed thousands of Americans.
It's awful. We've established this.
Iran is a threat to the world. Okay, if they get nuclear weapons, they would control the Strait of Hormuz anytime they wanted to, and people wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
They do
if
not
you think we have high oil prices now, we're going to have skyrocketing
prices. They do not need nuclear weapons to control the Straits of Hormuz. The Straits of Hormuz are right there. You can't change geography. They need small speedboats. They just need to issue a threat. What happened in the last few weeks? They didn't do anything. All they had to say was, we're going to shut the straits, and the markets did the rest. The insurance companies refused to insure ships. Shipping companies refused to go. They do not need nuclear weapons to shut.
That is resolvable in the Horn of Africa and the Strait of Malacca. It's resolvable in Hormuz.
All right, Bobby. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to go ahead and leave it there, and I just want to give you guys just a few points in regards to obviously the exchange that we've just seen. So first and foremost, it's just really frustrating that whenever you give a criticism or you say anything about what it is that this administration has done relating to the Iran war, is it okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon narrative just instantly gets thrown out there. And it's really, really, really boring. And the reason as to why it's boring is because these guys don't even believe what it is that they're saying about about Iran having nuclear weapons. You see, because if they did, these people would have been extremely vocal in opposing Donald Trump ripping up the JCPOA that Barack Obama took time to put together, which stopped Iran having a nuclear weapon. It also allowed people to be able to go in and do regular inspections as well as CCTV at all of their facilities so that they could check on whether or not Iran are sticking to the agreement that it is that they made in the JCPOA. But these guys said absolutely nothing. MAGA said nothing. These two Republicans you can see sitting at the table, I can guarantee, said absolutely nothing. So if Iran having a nuclear weapon was as big a problem as it was, then guess what? They should have been making it clear back then. But the reason as to why they're not doing that now is because they're play acting. This is what Republicans do when it comes to MAGA and Donald Trump. That's the reason as to why when you take a look at so many people in this current administration, these are the same people that called Donald Trump Hitler. These are the same people that said anybody who gets behind Donald Trump is going to be stupid. But when they saw the power that it is that he wielded with his base, i.e. MAGA, what did they do? They started to play politics. And that's what these people sitting at the table do. They don't believe the things that it is that they're saying. They're just saying those things. So it's interesting that when Adam made the point, the gentleman that we can see from the far side of the table, he turned around and he said to Adam that he's ungrateful. At no point did Adam even say that when he was speaking, at no point. But don't you think it's interesting that these people, the older demographic, can have an idea and an opinion that young people can't have an opinion and shouldn't say something about today's actions when it's going to affect them most tomorrow? This is the problem. This is exactly what the problem is. All of these people are making the actions that it is that they are because of the fact it's not going to affect them. It's not. It's going to affect the later generations. And that's the reason as to why they can come out and say stuff like this. Donald Trump is wasting billions of dollars, on this war that's taking place in Iran. But this is the same administration that told people that they can't help with healthcare, they can't help with childcare. It's just honestly embarrassing. And the idea that when Adam Mockler says, "Where's the enriched uranium?" and this gentleman we can see closest to the screen, his response was, "We're going to get it." That is an embarrassing answer. Like, that is really an embarrassing answer. What do you mean we're going to get it? Do you mean the same way that the war is going to be over in a few days? Then it changed to a few weeks, and then it changed to a month. Now you've got Donald Trump lying and saying on stage that it's only been 60 days. Like, these people are so far moved from reality that their response to things, when you ask them any questions about the war, they will turn around and you know what their response will be? Their response will be, the markets are at an all-time high. That is being so far removed from reality, because even if the markets are at all-time high, Americans, the average everyday American, number one, they don't have any money in the market. And then number two, on top of that, they're struggling financially, more than so at the pump right now. So to have a response to say that the markets are at an all-time high when the majority of people that this war is affecting don't have any money in the markets is just an absolute mockery of the American people. But it's no surprise, because this is like what I said at the top of me speaking. These people are just here to bootlick for Donald Trump and run cover and run defense for them. It's honestly a joke. These Republicans, in my humble opinion, are just an absolute group of embarrassments. Genuinely, they are. You know, a 22-year-old YouTuber has them losing their mind, has them making up things that it is that he never said, and just humiliating them over and over and over again, simply because they don't have a good, coherent argument to any of the points and to any of the things that it is that he says. But it shouldn't surprise us. This is MAGA. This is Republicans. And I always say, to be a Republican, to be a MAGA today, you have to be willing to go on a humiliation tour. And these two, they had theirs today. Let me know your guys' thoughts down in the comment section below. Give the video a thumbs up, hit subscribe, hype up the video, and turn on the bell notification. See you guys in the next one.